introduction. I think we've handled purpose of tonight's meeting, the key issues and concerns we'll talk about, plan revision since July, and a development timeline. If you'll give me about 15 minutes or so to get there. As somebody mentioned, the Lions and Packers are on tonight, so hopefully we'll have a chance to get home and see that. Next slide, please.
Mr. Flynn's a Packers fan, so, you know.
Not true.
Oh, yeah, no, that actually, that would be slanderous.
That's all right. That's all right. The only thing on this slide I'll point out is we provide our cell phone number as well as our email. We do not want anybody that needs to get a hold of us going through a switchboard and getting frustrated with internal voicemail or anything. So we provide you our cell phone as well as our email if anybody should need to contact us. Next slide, please. So the purpose of tonight's meeting, again, we really want to thank you for allowing us to come back before you folks to discuss this. We want to share how we've addressed the key issues and concerns that the folks have had in the plan revisions we've made. And then, obviously, we would like to request approval of both the rezoning and the PUD site plan. Next slide, please. So traffic, one of the big issues is traffic. As everybody knows, there's a lot of traffic issues existing. We are committed to paying our fair share of the traffic impact that we're going to cause. I'm sure you folks know that we're also doing a very large project in Washington Township. The traffic consultant that you folks hired, Washington Township then hired, and the same company did a traffic study for both communities. We are looking to address what our fair share of traffic impact would be. Keep in mind, Preston Corners is a very large development. Typically, when you see a development before you, it may be a 50-lot, 100-lot subdivision, something like this. We're talking 564 lots. We're talking 12 years to build it out. So even though the site plan looks like it's very, very dense, it's almost a half square mile that we're talking about. And again, we're talking about a much larger site plan that you folks normally would see. So there is a lot of emphasis on it. But again, as I show there, we're looking at probably about 12 years if everything would go well to build this community out to its full build out. The upcoming improvements to the 26-mile road corridor, there was a meeting that was held 2 weeks ago between Washington Township, Shelby Township representatives, the Macomb County Department of Roads, and Lombardo representatives at the county offices, where we discussed Shelby, Washington, existing conditions, future conditions, and so on. Between both communities in the county and us, we're trying to find what the best solutions are to address traffic issues. Some of them are in the works. For example, the county is looking to program some improvements for the 26-mile road corridor. That's in the next couple of years. So one of the things we are wondering is, rather than make some small incremental contributions to traffic improvements that may or may not get implemented until remaining funding gets approved, would it make sense for whatever our contribution is to focus that on, say, one intersection or one improvement that would bring immediate relief to an immediate problem? And that's something that Washington Township has asked us to look into, and it seems to make a lot of sense. So we're kind of suggesting that here tonight is, rather than make some incremental contributions to several intersections, would it not make sense for us to make one improvement at one intersection, even if it's not directly at our location, even if it's elsewhere in the township? That we think might make a lot of sense. So we're looking for some guidance there. And then the question is, where do we make the improvement or the improvements, and what is our fair share? The next slide, please. So again, the Bergman study identified several locations for improvement, and I mentioned the recent meeting with the various parties at the Road Commission. What is our fair share? That would be determined by taking whatever our impact is on the roads. There's different formulas for that. We're in the process of working that out. I'm assuming that the traffic consultant would compare those numbers, and we would be able to reach what we think is a fair compromise or a fair solution to that.
You're including the township in those?
Absolutely.
Working it out. So
absolutely.
They're engaged currently in the conversations that you're having, or no?
We are in the process of obtaining information on the various locations that the Bergman study identified as could use improvements, and we're going to put dollar amounts to that, and then we'll share them with the township, and whether it's through their traffic engineer, their consulting engineer, whoever, we assume they would look at it and either agree with it or say, no, it's different or whatever, but we would have those discussions, absolutely. And then because it will take some time for both the locations to be identified as well as what those costs are, what we would ask is that the Planning Commission recommend the approval contingent on the Township Board including that solution, or including that as a solution, trusting that the Township Board would make sure that that happens. Next slide, please. Lot sizes was another big issue. It's been a big issue for a long time. So we have completely eliminated all the 70-foot wide lots. In the community now, nothing will be less than 80 foot in width to offset or to mitigate the amount of density that we would have otherwise lost. We also eliminated the 100-foot wide lots. Those were in the center of the community, so they really weren't going to be an impact on any of the perimeter properties or our neighbors. So we eliminated the 100-foot wide lots and converted those to 90s. So now in the community, we have 80-foot wide, we have 90-foot wide, and then we'll have the duplex community. And then just a summary by lot size, 232 of the 80-foot lots, 184 of the 90s, and then 148 total duplex units, and that's 74 buildings. The other issue with the lot sizes was with the side yard setbacks. And there was a concern that the 5-yard setback was not adequate to provide for surface drainage to ensure that we could create a swale to address surface drainage in the side yards. There was also a concern that if a home is placed right on the 5-yard or the 5-foot setback, then overhangs or encroachments into that setback, such as eaves, egress wells, air conditioning units, things like that, can cause either building code issues or, again, going back to surface drainage issues. So what we've shown here in this slide and the next slide is by allowing the 5-foot side yard setback on just the one side and having a minimum of 10 feet on the other side, we still maintain the 15 feet between buildings. So in no circumstances would there ever be less than 15 feet between buildings, which I think is the intended outcome. Again, by allowing the 5-foot side yard setback, it allows us to do the side entry garages. And that, we understand, is a key component of the township's concerns from previously. So in doing the 5-yard setback, it allows us to have at least 3 feet on the 5-yard side for a drainage swale, so we can accommodate surface drainage. Can we flip to the other side, the other slide, please? Thank you. And then, as you can see, there's the wider plans, the 50-foot plans. Those are the ones that may be at that 5-foot setback. The narrower home plans, the other ones, wouldn't be at the 5-foot setback. So the only time the 5-foot setback would really be utilized would be on the larger house plans, our larger ranches and things like that. So it's not like every house is going to be on that 5-foot setback. It's just going to be some of them. The other thing is wherever we have a driveway relationship, we increase it to 7.5 feet of setback to ensure that we always have never less than 15 feet between structures. So we think we can address the spirit and intent of what the township is looking for with the building separation by allowing the 5-foot setback on the one side. And again, it's going to be in limited instances. It allows us to do 100% side entry garages, which we totally understand is your desire. Next slide, please. Architectural features, brick on all 4 sides, not a question. As we show there, the side entry is no longer anything but standard. The front entry we will not offer. The plans in each component also to ensure that the architectural theme is maintained throughout the process. Again, as I mentioned earlier, this is probably a 12-year build-out, so there's some of these communities that will not be developed and homes sold for several years. So what we're proposing is the development agreement include a requirement that prior to opening each component within Preston Corners, we would be required to submit the plans to the planning department for their architectural review to make sure that they meet the spirit and intent of the theme for the township. We think that's a pretty good compromise to show you guys all the plans and elevations that will be built there. Because of the length of time, we'll have new plans, just like car companies have new models and new elevations or new views that come out. We'll have new plans, so we can't show you all of the homes today because we don't have them. So we think that's a pretty good solution, is to make it incumbent on us to provide to the planning department the plans for review as part of each component's approval.
Okay, so review and approval
Yes.
at each step.
Review and approval.
Got it.
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely. Next one, please. Some of the key revisions from the previous plan, one I forgot to put on there, is that the boulevard that comes off of 26 Mile Road goes through the traffic circle and then ultimately goes out to Shaner. The traffic engineer, or excuse me, your consulting engineer had a concern that we were only providing a 15-foot pavement width in each direction, and they were concerned if there was a vehicle broke down, an emergency vehicle needed to go through, there could be some issues. So those have been widened to 18 feet throughout. That change did not make it to that plan, so I apologize for that. The two yellow circles represent two school connections to Duncan Elementary School on 26 Mile Road. So it shows two pedestrian connections to that. The two blue circles, the lower one represents what were the 70-foot lots that are now the 80s. The upper area were the 100-foot lots and are now the 90-foot lots. The three green circles show the revisions to the entrances to the main road connections, where we've eliminated the boulevard connections and gone to just a single entry, as was recommended by your traffic consultant. Next slide, please. Staff and consultant reviews, we received the review for this site plan submittal. There were several items that were called out. A lot of them are, I won't say minor, but a lot of them are comments that can be addressed between now and final site plan. Examples of that, there's some missing setback dimensions on some of the lots, things like that. Some sidewalk crossing locations still need to be worked out. There was a concern about where we locate some mid-block crossings and exactly how we do that to safely provide for them, and that we think that's probably better resolved when we're doing the engineering plan design and review. The 25 Mile Road emergency ingress egress, at an earlier meeting, we had talked about, and I believe it was your traffic consultant had indicated our previously shown connection to 25 Mile Road was too close to Shaner, and they anticipated some concerns with some traffic issues and conflicts. So we came up with the idea for an ingress-egress emergency gate. We're just showing a typical one of what we envision it would look like. We've used them in other communities, and it would have a knockbox on it where the fire department would be able to quickly access it if they needed to. There was a concern that we didn't show enough detail as far as getting through the ditch and the pavement material and things like that. Again, those are things that we can address during engineering plan review to make sure that all those structural items are addressed. Next slide, please. These are just the elevations updated to show that they're all side entry garages. There was a comment also on these indicating that some of the material on the first floor was not brick, and we understand that. And again, that kind of goes back to my comment about having the actual plans that we're going to build submitted to the planning department for their review and approval to ensure they're compliant with the spirit and intent of what we're all trying to do here. Next one, please. These are for the 90-foot home sites. Next one, please. This is for the duplex community. Next one, please. A development timeline. 20 years ago, I could read that from here, but I can't right now. But on the left slide, it shows the two communities that we're looking to develop next year. The northern one has 53 lots, the southern one has 52 lots. So again, that's 105 lots. That's kind of more of maybe what you would normally see in a site plan submittal before you folks. The rest of them are down the road, and there is a development schedule that anticipates when we would develop lots and then when those lots would be available for sale and so on. So it's kind of just a rolling process through that.
What sort of methodology do you use, or is there one? I mean, like, you sell so many lots, then you'll sort of start planning breaking on the other?
Yeah, we try to have a site ready about 6 months before we need it. Between the time it takes to get through the permitting and entitlement process, the time it takes to actually develop the land, the time it takes to get it punched out and building permits, getting franchise utilities installed, things like that. So it's usually about a 6-month lead time. So we have, without going into too much detail, we have what we call a lot roll forward schedule. And we predict for every community how many sales per month we're going to have. And then when it gets to a point where we're getting low on inventory, or where we think we'll be low on inventory, then we anticipate and we backdate when we need to start so that we can have lots available without gapping out or without running out of lots.
So sort of at current kind of absorption, you're thinking it's 12 years?
Yep.
So plus or minus, a downturn or an acceleration. And
Absolutely. It's all market driven. In several slides ago when I had that, I think it was 11.75 year estimation, it was based on selling 4 units a month. We'd be happy to sell 4 units a month. Most of our communities, we look at 2 units per month because we would probably have maybe 2 different size home plans here available, things like that. It might be a little bit more, but that's kind of what it's based on.
okay, thank you.
Okay. Next slide, please. Again, I don't know if that was 15 minutes or not, but I would be glad to try to answer any questions that you or any of the commissioners have.
Okay. Tell you what, I'm going to start. I'm going to turn this to the planner for her comments, then I'll bring you up to address the board's questions.
Okay. Chairman Moffett, I believe Mr. Wingdingland did a good job of estimating addressing most of our comments. The biggest one I did have was the 5-foot side yard setbacks, but as he explained tonight, I am okay with having the 5-foot setback as long as there's 15 feet in between units, and if you could agree to, if there is a 5-foot side yard setback on one of the homes, no egress windows or anything to overhang into that 5-foot setback. The one emergency access easement between units 3 and 4 along 25 Mile, you will address that at engineering.
Hey, Greg, why don't you come back up? Yeah.
Okay. I think most of those comments, like you said, we've talked about for road improvements, that those details could be worked out later with the traffic engineers and the engineering department. But for the most part, I think this plan actually addresses the master plan and complies with what the master plan calls out for. And I think they've done a good job in modifying all the lots to meet everybody's concerns. The only question I had was, is there any different materials that you could use for the siding? I like the elevations, and I like the brick, and I like the different materials that you're introducing, but is there anything different that you can introduce to replace the siding?
Sure, we can, at the time we submit the elevations, we can submit different siding materials as well for your review and approval.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Okay, great. You mentioned about the flexibility on, you acknowledge your need to make contributions to some of the infrastructure, specifically road improvements. Again, once that gets done, that'll be lost from this body as to like who enforces that and what, on who enforces that or watches it. I guess it's on. For what it's worth, I guess my preference would be that once that amount is determined, that it's actually placed in areas that would be impacted by your development and not used to like Auburn and, and not that Auburn and DeQuinder and Avon need improvements, but rather, and I guess maybe that comment is to our board representative and to.
Yeah, I would agree that makes the most sense. And talking with the planner earlier today and to address the concerns of the residents, there are several existing problems there, which this developer and this development may help to address some of those existing problems more quickly than they would have otherwise been addressed because, so in some ways it may be a good thing. But I agree with you, Mr. Chairman, that the money should be spent on stuff he's impacting.
Right. And recognizing that this as a 12-year phase in, your impact's going to be sort of progressive through it. Yeah.
I was just going to say, We completely think it's your decision, you being the township, as far as whether you'd like to dedicate the funds to be used near our area to help alleviate existing conditions or elsewhere in the township or whatever.
So whatever we tell you you need to contribute, you're 100% on? See Mr. Lombardo nodding? No, okay.
Yeah, almost.
Yeah.
But the other thing is, once we come up with that number, we're interested in paying the full amount up front rather than some kind of incremental formula where we pay so much every year based on development. We're looking at whatever the number is, we want to pay that so that if we are going to make an impact, we can do that now.
Okay. Well, I guess, and that's.
Well, there'll be
that's-
discussions with engineering and the road
Right.
commission
Right.
and things like that.
Right. You know, granted, your impact might be not 10 or 12 years from now, and prices might be, you know, a little different than they are now, too, so. But brighter minds will prevail. To the board, questions? Mr. Dallin.
Chairman, It's, you indicating the 12-year spread in the development. Is there any reason that you don't start, I'm very sure you have them divided in certain phases. Is there any reason that you don't take one phase at a time for the approval? At least people would be more comfortable with the traffic and all of that issue. And you take one phase at a time and finish it and start with the other phase with the development.
Do you have that chart? Because I think I saw something that had phases in some of the materials you had submitted.
Yes, there is, may I?
Sure.
Okay. The reason we need to get the site plan approval for the entire site is because of the road networks. The open space is really for all the parcels. The open space is for the overall Preston Corners community. The road network configurations, the main collector road that goes through the community, we really need to know where all those are going to be situated rather than do them piecemeal. It would be much less efficient, I think, for us and for the township if we did it piecemeal. I think by doing it as a global site plan, I think we have a much better overall site plan as far as how the open space relates across different communities, how all those things relate.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, and to dovetail on Commissioner Dell's question, it's a good question, but your answer, I think, is important, and I think the Planner Commission, we've been burned a few times on that, where we approve a section and the guy goes out of business, and 10, 15 years later, they come back with some abomination that they want to finish it up with. So with this, we have the advantage of knowing what everything's going to look like. And we don't have to worry about, God forbid, they go out of business and then some other guy comes in and says, I want to do X, Y, or Z, and it rocks the whole apple cart. You got connections that, you know, people say this road was supposed to connect and now they don't want it to connect and blah, 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 and it messes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, so to the point, you know, again, to add on that if for some reason after phase 3 you no longer have an interest in it, I mean, it still has to be built, how the balance of it has to be built, and if not, then we have to start this process all over again.
Correct.
All right. Any other questions, comments? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now, as I stated earlier, this isn't a public hearing, but I know there's a lot of interest in this. It's, you know, it's a significant development in our community. So if there's something that's been raised this evening that you think has changed something that we've not considered before, then come on up. I'll need your name and your address. Sir, come on up.
It's, Mr. Chairman, I could keep time for you, and so basically, for the benefit of the folks that are here, this is going to count as business from the floor, since this is not a public hearing. So this will be business from the floor, so you only get to come up one time tonight, so be aware of that, please.
Bill Chaluk on Milky Way. The question I have, I've heard a couple generalities, mine is specifics.
Okay, so can I get you to talk, speak into the
The
mic?
question that I have is, there are 416 single-family residents and 74 duplex units. Is that set in concrete? Or is this developer able to make a change? So in other words, 5 years from now, there's a change. The reason I bring it up is right across the street from us are a number of buildings. Those are condos. Originally, when they were built, the first 2 or 3 were being sold as condos. Now they're all being leased. So that's why I bring that issue up. And the other thing that I'd like to raise, and I'm not going to dwell on it, is the traffic congestion. And this is mainly to the ladies sitting in front of me. Currently, there are several hundred homes being built along 25 Mile Road between DeQuinder and Hayes. They're under construction, or they will be constructed, and this development will take 12 years. So we can just see the total impact of all these homes being built and the amount of traffic going east and west, and I see it every day. So I simply want you folks to take that into account as far as children, kids, walking along 25 Mile Road, and the amount of traffic you currently have, and the amount of traffic that we will have going forward. Thank you.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, I can answer the questions as he sits down.
Yeah.
We're not going to revisit traffic tonight, so let's just be clear on that. We've heard you on traffic, so that would fall under the chairman's guidelines of something new. We are addressing the current traffic issues and the ongoing traffic issues with the road commission, and the goal of this board and the township board is to address those as this development goes forward, but the development is going to go forward. Our goal as planners, as citizens, and as trustees is to get the best development possible, but not to stop development, because we won't stop development. So if 200 people were in this room tonight, this development is still going to happen, so that's not an option. Our goal is to take your input and use our best judgment to get the best development possible, because if we vote him down tonight, he's going to go to circuit court, and a circuit court judge is going to decide what goes there. And believe me, I'll bet everybody in here it's going to be far, far worse than anything we're looking at tonight. So none of the circuit court judges live in Shelby Township. So our goal is to get the best deal possible, realizing that development is going to happen. To answer your question about the apartments and things like that, that's a marketing decision. The township board doesn't have authority to dictate whether it's leased as an apartment or a condo. That's something the developer has the freedom to decide on his own, because you see that all the time. You'll see apartments turned into condos. You'll see condos turned into apartments. But to answer your question about the number of units, that's another, again, comes back to why we approve the whole project at once or deny the whole project at once, so that we don't have any surprises. Because 10 years from now, when maybe half of us are gone, a new owner may come back and try to pull something, but we have everything in the file says, no, this is what is approved. You can't make those changes, and that protects us as residents. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Sure. So back again, I had stated this earlier. Once this is approved, if any changes are to be made, we have to start this whole process all over again. The public hearings, the new submissions, so the simple answer is no. In terms of the use of it, whether it's, and I believe the intent of most of the properties in that area are for sale. But if something were changed, the township does not have the authority, as Mr. Flynn said, to alter that. Then you come on up and get your name and your address.
My name's Marissa. I'm at White Spruce Lane, and I just was wondering.
Okay, into the microphone.
If those pictures, originally, was this supposed to be front brick all the way up, or is it going to stay the way in those pictures, half brick in the front? I
think there's a variety of elevations, and I mean
Right.
it's really going to depend on what people want to buy, but there will be brick on all four sides, at least for the lower
But
level.
last time I was here, I thought that you mentioned that if it could be brick in the front all the way, but then the pictures, it didn't show that, so I was just curious if it's that way or not. So I don't remember.
I don't think we're mandating all brick on the front, are we?
No,
No,
we're all four sides.
All
We're
four sides
mandating
have
all
brick.
four sides, but yeah, some people might want to do a stone front,
Oh,
or
okay.
some people
And then
might
the other
want to have some
question-
siding on the
okay.
front.
And then the other question was, on those condos-looking things, or those
Duplex.
duplexes, those have front garages. Is that the way they're going to be?
One of them has a front garage and one of them
has
has
a
a
side.
side garage.
Okay.
Just so they look more like one house when you're looking at it.
Patrick Smasko, 25 Mile Road. Just a question, when you're doing so many different phases, when does the developer give up the obligation to maintain the roads? Because when you do the later phases, the earlier phases, the roads are so destroyed by the heavy construction, and we've seen other developments that they just walk away and then the roads are trashed. Not the mile roads,
Right, but the
the
internal-
roads within.
within. Yeah, Mr. Smasko, could you sign in, please? We need you to sign in. you have an answer?
That's usually mandated by the Department of Roads. There's upkeep on those roads that they mandate, and also our building department, so.
Okay. Do you want to answer that question, Mr. Winlingland?
The internal streets will be private, so they'll be maintained by not only the individual sub-associations, but there'll also be a master association that manages not only the collector road, the traffic circle, the stormwater basins, but also all the perimeter landscaping on the mile roads. That will determine the level of service for winter maintenance, for summer pothole filling, all those types of things. And we fund the association shortfall until they get to about 70 to 75%, then they become self-sufficient where they fund it. As far as the control of it, that's dictated by the master deed of when that transition actually happens. We normally stay involved until the end of the project, though.
Well, are there plans to have like alternate construction roads, is to not put wear and tear? Or?
We're looking at doing concrete, because it tends to hold up a little bit better during the early construction rather than asphalt pavement, so we're looking to do concrete. A lot of that is price-driven at the time we go to build the roads.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Sarah Deagle, 1449925 Mile Road. Just a couple questions I couldn't see clearly. Is there screening on the, between commercial and residential? I didn't see it along the property. I'm not sure if it's on the maps.
Okay.
I know we've talked about it, but
I don't believe there.
There are no commercial districts, it's all residential.
Yeah.
So there's technically, there's no screening required between residential districts.
we are commercial. So our resident is actually, the greenhouse is considered a commercial property. On 25, the little box on the right corner.
But it's zoned single-family residential, it's not zoned commercial.
It's a non-conforming
There's
use,
no,
right?
it's non-conforming.
Because our property tax says commercial, or agriculture.
Well, right,
So
but
is
it's still
it-
single-family residential.
Okay, because I know we've discussed before about screening, so I wanted to make sure that that's on the record, that they were going to put screening between our properties.
They're not required to.
Okay, and then just, I saw for Duncan, I see that you have the different, but I was wondering for Beacon Tree, do you have any, like, entrances going, because obviously it's across from Shaner, so is there anything that, for, like, a designated area for crossing for that? I didn't know, because I didn't know if, like, the lighting thing would be part of the road commission, or if that's something that would be involved with the,
I believe that answer is no. I don't think there's been any accommodation for Beacon Tree.
Beacon Tree would service
Right.
that side of Shaner.
oh, won't, okay, because they were talking about that's all rezoning for Utica, so somebody said that that was a possibility, that the sub would be split, so I was just curious about that then. Okay, that was my question, thank
Okay.
you.
Hi, I'm Kathy LaPiccolo, 56089 Shana Road. Since I found out you're going to be starting right across from us first tonight, when would you start, like, putting the roads in? When is that going to begin, do you know? Well, I mean, if it's approved, do you know when that would begin?
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Is that your question?
That's my one question.
Why don't you ask all your questions
Okay,
and
and
then
then,
we'll do this.
I know they said they're not doing a boulevard anymore. It's just going to be a road going into the sub off of Shaner, but it's right across from my home. And I just wonder if it's still right across from my home, and if they're still going to put the privacy screening there for the lights.
Okay, why don't you come on up? Okay.
Okay.
Going back first to Mrs. Deagle, we had met with them, and it was at a very busy time. I think it was around Mother's Day or something for the plantings. We're committed to providing them some type of screening in that, and we'll continue to do that, whether it's on the record or not. As far as the last questions, same thing. We had discussed at one of the homeowner meetings that prior to us constructing our Shaner Road entrance, we would work with them to provide some level of screening, whether it's evergreens, whatever it is, on their side of Shaner, so that we can help mitigate that. And again, whether it's on the record or not, we're still committed to doing that. As far as the timing of that entrance, it would be late 2020 is when we would expect that to go in. Probably summer construction would start, and then the entrance would be fall installation, something like that.
Okay. Okay, sir.
My name is Bill Burrows, 56301 Shaner. Looks like it's going to be starting across the street from me also. So, we've been doing this a long time, years now, and I'm hearing there's nothing being addressed towards the roads.
Okay,
Except
so
for some greenery and some shrubbery and stuff to hide things. I'm a little reluctant, and it sounds like you guys are under pressure to do something quicker. You're going to have different courts. Something feels funny. Why can't we, is there anybody can say anything towards the road, what it is we need to do?
So we've had the traffic study done, so
I know.
experts in it.
Yeah, and
so
then
there's
what
a
have they
plan.
come up with?
Pardon?
What have they come up with?
It's been addressed at prior meetings, and I'm not going to rehash it again. If
Oh.
you want to address it, if you want to go to the planning department, they're open Monday through Friday. They'd be happy to share it with you. You can go through what their recommendations were.
All right, because
Okay,
a
next.
simple intersection with a turn lane would do it. That's all we need. That's all I'm hoping to hear.
It's been, and what's being proposed, what's been, recommended is far more sophisticated than that, and it's phased in as this development gets phased in.
Good, thank you.
Sure. Sir, could you sign in, please? Someone else wish to comment? Going twice?
Yeah, one more in the back.
What are you doing?
Good.
Steve Causley, 14881 Chatham Drive. The thing I heard brought up, I think the planner brought it up, was about the siding. Try to keep the siding off the houses if possible. The only thing I want to bring up is that if we're building 3,000 or 3,500 square foot brick houses outside of the traffic, I think it'd be empty in here with big lots. So it's just about keeping the area nice. I know this ain't a public hearing, but like I said, if we keep nice houses, big lots, it goes a long way with the people here.
I tell you, the lot sizes, what they're proposing are very much in tune with all the subdivisions in the area.
It's come a long way. It's come, but it was
they're-
not that way in the beginning. I've been coming here for a year and a half, right?
That's why, and I know, and we've been here.
Right,
Okay?
I get that, and so have I.
We've listened to
So-
every question. So now we've got 80 and 90-foot lots, which covers probably that 95% of what's built in
Like I
that
said,
area.
it's come a long way.
Okay.
It's come a long way.
All right.
So let's, if we would have just let it go 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, we would have had little apartments built on the side of 25 Mile Road. So it's come a long way.
Okay.
You guys have helped. You rejected a lot of the things. So a lot of things have happened, but just keep in mind, and even for Mr. Lombardo, just build something nice in the community. You know, your name's on it, everybody's name, the people that come here, you guys. If we build something nice, keep it nice, everybody's happy.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Anyone else? Sir, can you sign in, please? Sir? Sign in. Okay, I see no more hands, so I'll bring it back to the board. Okay, ma'am. No, come on up. No, come on up.
Just a question, Hanna Czerwinska, Preston Pine subdivision. Just a suggestion, we have horrible cut through Preston Pines. If somebody can address and help out with no through traffic, it's a shortcut to Shaner going south, and will be added to it when we get that exit to 25 Mile. So if somebody can help out, it's a lot of small children in Preston Pines. They're on the bikes, and there'll be tragedy if everybody will be cutting through, because that light 25 in Shaner is horrible
Okay.
on the top of the fire station.
Guess what I would recommend is perhaps you can talk to the planners, maybe someone at the police department, if you think
But
there's
I
some
want you to
excessive.
hear it, what concerns we have, that's all.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Flynn?
On the road issue, I'll remind everyone that we are a township, not a city, so we don't have direct control over our roads. The county does. So I encourage you to call the supervisor's office and share any concerns you have, but he's just the middleman. He's going to call the county people to ask him for permission for whatever you want to do. It's confusing, and it's a surprise to a lot of people that we do not control our roads. So if you're talking about traffic light timing or turn lanes or anything like that, that's all through the county. Because we are a township, we don't have control over that. As far as this project goes, yes, I agree, it has been a journey, but I think the process has worked in this case. You have your citizen representatives up here. Oh, are you going to do one more?
Yeah, one more.
right.
Okay, last one.
Go ahead.
Come on. Let's.
Chris Stepien on Shana Road. Question for you. Seems like the strategy of developer is to exhaust residents, because we see less and less residents coming. It's not because there are many issues they were resolved, because I can see that the lots of the 70 feet size were eliminated, but also the 100 feet lots were eliminated. So feels like it's some type of ping pong game with the city and with the residents. I raised the number of people raised the issue of the duplexes. Is it something the city can help us to eliminate this type of structures? Because this is the last large lot this township has. It's not the city. It's township. Why we have to have some type of structures that they actually belong to the cities, not to the townships. Across of the 25 mile, there are nice houses, large houses. Why the developer doesn't, build this type of housing, eliminate completely siding? I mean, this is like a pearl of the township, and I would expect the city to push developer to put something that we all gonna be proud of. So that's there are a number of questions, and then if I want to put any conditions on the duplexes, but if we end up having those duplexes, can they be put somewhere back far from the road? Because seems like we're being surrounded by this type of housing, and it's just simply not right to existing residents they live that they have to be surrounded by duplexes. That's pretty much everything.
Is the floor closed?
What's that?
Is the floor closed?
The floor
now?
is now closed.
All right. I'm going to read this gentleman a quote that I got from the planner today. Planning commissions must understand that neither longevity of residence nor extent of property ownership confers special privileges on citizens. The last person to enter democracy does not have the right to close the door on those who follow. And that's very much applies to this case. And those duplexes are probably going to be worth more than most of the houses in the area, including across the street. So we have a lot of seniors, and they're not all going to Arizona. They're not all going to Florida. I know we talked about this the last two meetings, but since we're reliving it, we'll relive it. We're going to have a lot of need for that high-end product for, as I think the average age of the people in Shelby is in the high 50s. We're going to have a need for that high-end product, and it is tucked away in the back of the sub up by Ray Township. And I hate to say it because I love my treasurer up in Doug Steer in Ray Township. You drive up in Ray Township, and that's a third world country up there. So it's going to be, it's a budding Ray Township is where those duplexes are going to be, and it's going to be far nicer than anything you're going to see in that area. As far as the process goes, I'll continue where I left off. This was a lengthy process. I think it is a good example of how your citizen reps heard you, but we were already thinking the same thing you were thinking. We were going to get to this result, whether there were two people in this room or the number of people we see here tonight, because we live here too. We're concerned about our property values as well. I live at 25 in Jewel. So we're all thinking the same thing. And I think in this case, it was a good example of how we took that into account and spent the time to work with the developer, who this developer is a reputable guy. You saw me shake hands with him when I walked in the room. This is a guy that is going to build a high-end product, and it's going to be worth, those houses are going to be worth a fortune. There's nothing in that area that's going to have the kind of open space that this neighborhood has. Most of those lots are going to be comparable in size to Preston Pines and the other neighborhoods, but they're not going to be able to touch the open space. He's going to get a huge premium for those houses. When you start seeing these phases go in, watch your Zillow estimates and watch the value of your houses go up as he starts to sell houses. So I think at the end of the day, I'm going to be a yes on this project. I hope the Board of Trustees is a yes on this project because it is the last section of the township. We put that sewer in with great controversy. This is the last area, so we want to make sure that that it's something we can all be proud of and as we become a fully developed community in the next 10 years. So, and I think we've got there, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, yeah.
That was from a
I got it from the
textbook.
planner. It's from a textbook. It's about America.
Any other comments?
I've lived here since '98, and I don't get to pull the drawbridge up. Guy built a huge mansion 2 houses down from me. I think it's uglier than sin, but I didn't get to pull the drawbridge up either. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And my family's only lived here since 1973, so I remember about 5 houses that were on the other side of a Jewel Road back when we moved out here. And although she's considerably younger than I know Commissioner Moore's family's been out here since '71. So, I mean, it's a process, you know. We've evolved. The community character changed dramatically from the 50s and 60s when a lot of the big development grew to now a lot of the new development are all the higher end homes. But that's not to say we don't benefit from a diversity. And frankly, these homes are, like Mr. Flynn said, are going to be a lot of you know, a lot of the same neighbors that you have currently. With that, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Turner.
I move to recommend approval to the Township Board of rezoning petition number 1-17 and a final PUD approval for Southeast Michigan Land Holdings LLC to be rezoned from R1 Single Family Residential to R1B One Family Residential and the final planned unit development site plan for the following reasons. The R1B zoning classification is consistent with the predominant zoning pattern in the northeast quadrant of the community. The planned extension of sanitary sewers to this portion of the township supports an increase in density. The change is not out of scale with existing development patterns in this area of the township. The final planned unit development site plan provides a mixture of housing options that are consistent with the recommendations contained in the master plan. The new site plan introduces usable open space throughout the development. A final PUD agreement is required that takes into account the traffic impacts associated with this development, and a revised site plan is required addressing all department comments.
Support.
Mr.
Mr. Chair. Can I
Chairman.
ask the motion maker to amend, oh, sorry.
Okay, no, I've got Commissioner Moore.
Okay,
What's
to
your
make 2
question?
amendments to the motion. The first one is to require bonds for all common areas that are developed in phases. And then the second one is to provide some type of screening to the abutting residential property, the property that was in question,
The Ms. Eagles?
the Miss Deagle. So those are the only 2 things that I had.
Okay, that sounds good to me.
Mr. Dowling?
The participation, the developer was talking about helping in the traffic manner financially.
Right.
So
If I could add a contingent upon a final PUD, including a fair cost-sharing plan regarding road improvements, is that what?
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Rapone, you
Yes.
agree? Any other questions or comments on the motion? Hearing none. Commissioner Turner?
Yes.
Commissioner Rapone?
Yes.
Commissioner Flynn?
Yes.
Commissioner Dalu?
Yes.
Commissioner DeSico?
Yes.
Commissioner Gonzalez? Commissioner Meredith? Sir. Commissioner Moore?
Yes.
The chair votes yes. Good luck.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to say I completely agree with Mr. Flynn. This was a very good process. It shows the system does work. On behalf of all of us at Lombardo, thank you all very much. We will not disappoint you.
Okay, thank you.
Move to adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
Is there support?
Support.
If anyone in the audience wants to wish Mr. Flynn a happy birthday, he came here to take this abuse on his birthday, so
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
we're adjourned.
Among Shelby Township's greatest assets are the world-class recreational opportunities it provides to residents. Within its borders, the township offers more than 1,100 acres in township parks, sports fields, playgrounds, and trails. Shelby Township provides an escape for nature lovers with many of its parks. Home to more than 100 species of native birds and animals, including nesting American bald eagles, and more than 80 species of trees, shrubs, wildflowers, it's hard not to fall for the township's beauty. Along with its parks and recreation facilities and programs, Shelby Township is home to Cherry Creek Golf Club, one of the finest public golf and banquet destinations in Michigan. The township also shares the 4,000-acre Stony Creek Metro Park, which is home to the beautiful and tranquil 500-acre Stony Creek Lake. Shelby Township also hosts part of the Macomb Orchard Trail, a 24-mile hike and bike path that connects 180 miles of trails across southeastern Michigan. Shelby Township's parks and access to the Clinton River are the heart of what makes the township a better place to play. Add the township's hundreds of miles of hiking and biking trails, and it's easy to recognize Shelby Township's access and opportunity for recreation are like no other places in the region. Among these trails is the westernmost portion of the Macomb Orchard Trail, which spans from the township's western border and ends in downtown Richmond. There are also trails that connect the township's 800-acre Riverbends Park to Lake St. Clair. Shelby Township is also home to a key connection of the Macomb County 70-mile trail loop and the planned Iron Bell Bike Trail, which will ultimately connect the city of Detroit to the state of Wisconsin. Shelby Township's trails offer residents and visitors a scenic mix of up-north hikes and great asphalt bike paths. All of these amenities ensure that no matter what your outdoor interests might be, there is a place in Shelby Township for you and your family. A better place.